First things first, Ben Mendelsohn, sir, I'm so sorry. You are indeed 50, not 60. See, this is why I wish I were taught Common Core as a kid. And 2, you are Australian. Obviously, since I literally pointed out that Talos had an Australian accent but earlier called you British. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry. I love you, you're the best. All the Aussies in my audience, take a win. Ben, take a win. Also, speaking of joking about Ben Mendelsohn's typecasting, hey, give him some non-villainous roles. Hollywood, dude's got range, clearly. 50-year-old Australian range. Anyway, as a quick intro, I do actually have a point here other than defend X, though I'll be discussing most shades of audience member to a point as well as the movie. I think there are reasons beyond politics as to why the movie might work for some and might not for others. But it's funny, walking out of theater, I said to Julia, I think I'll avoid all the political stuff surrounding this movie and, just really talk about the movie, and she agreed, and we had a good laugh, and we laughed and laughed. But before I get to that, I want to wrap up some stuff about the movie. Captain Marvel isn't my favorite movie of the year, or of the MCU. It's a filler movie between the two-part Avengers finale with a decent origin story and at best a fun spy buddy cop movie with a decent twist. Nothing groundbreaking. It's mostly paint-by-numbers Marvel, but that's by no means an insult. The majority of the MCU is paint-by-numbers Marvel, mostly competent with few logic leaps and head-scratching moments. High praise, I know. But I'm not really here to tell you this movie is good. I just like to cover the good that it does. And even if some of it is a little ham-fisted here and there, it's still enjoyable. The bad guy flip is probably the best thing this movie has going for it, and it actually holds up looking back. This guy is shooting what is clearly a stun blast of some kind, all dispersed out. I know, you're shouting, they said dead or alive. No, what she said was take him into dead or alive.
I know as we take him into dead or alive.
She was talking about Fury, who they didn't need. No one said the Skrulls were benevolent pacifists. In fact, Talos even says,
"This is war. My hands are filthy from it too."
Plus, even if you want to say that she was talking about Carol as well, they know human weapons won't kill her. Which, yeah, Captain Marvel is overpowered to a ridiculous degree, which presents problems going forward. But you know me, I'm pretty much good at little hand-wavy, she's off-world stuff in service of a good story. And the story about a girl getting knocked down, turning into a woman crushing everything in her way didn't disappoint me in theaters, and it doesn't now. Like I said, unlimited power can be cathartic. Visual effects are top-notch, though if I had to pick one thing they should have fixed, it's too dang dark. I relit and color corrected this scene myself so you guys would know what I was talking about. Still can't get over the de-aging. Yes, even Coulson, while not as good as Fury, is solid. 90% of the performances were excellent. Seeing a happy-go-lucky Nick Fury was relaxing, I don't know.
We going to space?
It's nice to see him so laid back. And I really think the rapport that he and Carol have is engaging. They're tentative with each other at first, but slowly build a relationship that I believe. Nothing much phases Fury, and Carol isn't worried about phasing people. That creates a fun dynamic. So, I expect this video will probably upset everyone at least a little, but overall, hopefully change some minds or at least soften some hearts. This movie is another in a long line of movies where I sit and watch two sides be so diametrically opposed that they fundamentally misunderstand the other side's position. Tribalism flourishes in film discussion for some reason. Some of you think of me as a filthy centrist on everything, just trying to find that happy middle ground so I don't upset anyone too much. But these are just my actual opinions. There are very few things that I'm 100% one-sided on because I think that's dumb. If you think you've heard every side of an argument, you're wrong. I'm not saying there aren't some lines that are easy to draw in the sand. There's no middle ground between Nazi and non-Nazi. No Nazis. But when it comes to film, it's a little more complex. And I want to tell you my Captain Marvel story so you understand why I landed here. But first, let's define the sides how the opposing side sees them. So again, before you get mad, these aren't the actual sides, these are how they're seen from the people who have the other opinion. First is, I hate this movie because I hate Brie Larson because she's a woman and women can't be superheroes, girls shouldn't be smug and cocky and she breaks the law. I'd never admit to enjoying this movie, even if I did, I hate her just like all women. The second is, I love this movie without even watching it. Brie Larson is a feminist god standing up against the devilish white men, and I'm so happy that Disney has finally gotten on board with my agenda because white dudes' time is up. Let them die. Kill them if you have to. Okay, so there are your poorly defined sides. My experience was obviously affected, I guess. I knew I was going to do this movie unless the messaging ended up being kill all children or something. I do say no to movies, but, well, I'm not sure if I've ever said this aloud on here, but the main reason I made this channel is because every movie, even the worst movie you can think of right now, is someone's favorite. I know because I've met those people, and I am one of them. So my goal is to look into why that movie is someone's favorite. I've done movies I don't like, I've even done movies I hated. I'm always honest about it, I don't lie about what I think, but I have omitted my feelings if they don't benefit that specific conversation. While I was never totally on one side or the other, I had some feelings. Starting with, I have always loved Brie Larson. I love Kate Gregson, Mason Weaver, and ooh boy, you know I love Envy Adams. Brie's a great actor who's had misses here and there, but she's talented. You may not have thought so in this movie, but I don't know, some things just aren't worth arguing. She's good at her job. That said, the positive movie guy went into the theater annoyed. My opinion was absolutely tainted by Brie's attitude off screen seeming to come through Carol. So, long story short, I left the theater thinking the movie was fine, but I wasn't a fan of Captain Marvel herself. Julia was my litmus test, if you will. She went in blind to the controversy, and I didn't even tell her there was one until after. Her world is Instagram, not Twitter, bless her soul. She loved the movie, loved Captain Marvel, and didn't get any of the feelings I did. And it's not like she would be blinded by woman, power, shiny. She's more astute than me in a lot of ways at interpreting art. Honestly, she should be making these videos, which is why I have to constantly reduce her to, ooh, cute, wife win type stuff. So I had to second guess my own response. I tried to watch this movie again as objectively as possible at home, and I honestly believe I let those clips get the best of me in theaters. Just as an aside, if you don't know what I'm talking about with Brie Larson, don't worry about it. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in detail later, but it really doesn't matter. All you need to know is that some people were rubbed the wrong way by some things that she said and how she said them. But you've watched the first half of this video, so you know I realize there are some reasons why her character makes sense. She was on the bad guys team, and bad guys can be unlikable. They were literally making her suppress her emotions and messing with her head. In a moment where she starts to emote, Jan Rog tells her to remember her training, and she calms down.
No, it's not because I remember I was here.
Stop. Remember your training.
And anyone who pins the problem of being straight-faced on Brie alone is just showing you that they don't know how movies are made. There's a reason they're called directors, since they direct their actors' actions. So if you watched a video that spent hours trashing Brie and Brie alone, know that you've been duped by someone who may not know what they're talking about. Also, maybe they just missed the first half of the movie.
You struggle with your emotions.
Humor is a distraction.
Stop using this, start using this. There's nothing more dangerous to a warrior than emotion.
Listen up, team. Knock it off. Right.
All that said, one of the more annoying things to come out of this controversy was the idea that men can't handle a female superhero or lead. It's a straw man argument at best, inflammatory at worst. It also wasn't simply that she was unlikable or pompous. Gamora is pretty unlikable and pompous in the first Guardians, but no one had a problem with her. In fact, Black Widow's character for Iron Man 2 is basically be better at things than men, and everyone loved her. And if you still don't believe me, no one complained about Wasp, who I mentioned in that video was the most capable hero in that movie. Elektra may have been a hated movie, but no one went after Jennifer Garner. Jean Grey has now been the focus of multiple movies. People bash the movies, but not the actresses. Alita, Underworld, Hannah, Resident Evil, Alien, Aliens, Hunger Games, Atomic Blonde, Kill Bill, Edge of Tomorrow. Look, I'm not pretending like there aren't small-minded people who have a problem with female superheroes, and if you're someone who hated this movie simply because it had a female lead, please leave me a comment and let me know why. I am super interested to hear from someone with your enlightened perspective. Just last week, I got a comment complaining about a badass, unrealistic woman in a movie about time resetting aliens.
What's happening?
It's just, when you hear Agent Coulson call comic book fans who don't like Brie butthurt, you know, the comic fans that made Captain Marvel popular enough to turn into a movie, it's pretty infuriating. And at the same time, ignoring the exactly zero backlash Alita Battle Angel was getting at the same time, and also the zero backlash Wonder Woman got besides some crazy outliers. Comment sections catch the dregs of society, and out of 3,400 comments, if there was one comment about not liking her because she's a her, I didn't see it. And I caught the handful of anti-Semitic comments. So there's that. People dislike actors for reasons other than their gender. That said, fanboys and fangirls can suck sometimes. And when they get angry, they try to cause pain and damage by reverting to attacks about gender, race, sexuality, all the things people just are and can't or wouldn't change about themselves. So if you've ever resorted to that, just don't. Attack ideas, not people, or don't even attack ideas, just discuss. Is Brie complaining about the race and gender of critics? Explain why you think it's racist or sexist and move on. Sort of like this. The idea that all white dude critics have the same perspective is silly, and reducing people who aren't white dudes to just being represented by their race or gender is also pretty icky. Like I said in Black Panther, young girls of color can relate to Thor's contentious relationship with his brother just as well as a flesh and blood Norse god. I, a white dude, teared up in theaters watching Carol through the ages standing back up. But yeah, have more diversity among reviewers. I'd love to hear from people from all walks of life and cultures. There is one big flaw in her argument. You can't pretend like anything that isn't made for mass appeal is going to do as well as something that is. A Wrinkle in Time is actually a bad example, but serves the purpose. I don't know for whom Edgar Wright or Catherine Bigelow or P.T. Anderson movies are made, but no amount of anyone saying they love them helps them make a monetary splash or reach those viewers that are missing the movies. I don't even disagree with her message, but the delivery. So men weren't mad that there was a cocky woman in their comic book movie, they were mad Brie was in their comic book movie. I don't believe people who claim this movie is bland or that Brie is bland and emotionless are lying because they're mad. I'm saying that outside influences matter. Context matters, and if subconsciously you're seeing someone who pissed you off in real life come through the character they're playing, But still, she's not an ungrateful, entitled brat, or at least from what I have to go on. The more I watch this, the more I realize she's just uncomfortable talking about something that matters to her. And here's some homework for you that sort of turned me around, or at least made me consider some stuff. Oh wow, it has 4 million views, you've probably already seen it. Charisma on Command explains why the way she acts doesn't work, but that her intent was most likely to be funny or sarcastic, and it just came off wrong. Like, she's just joking, but it feels... I'm sorry, Brie. Honestly, being in the public eye isn't easy, and even though I'm just another white guy talking about movies, I get your point, and I see that your intentions were pure, but saying I don't hate white dudes multiple times is like, I'm not racist, but...
Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes. I don't hate white dudes.
At the same time, use your voice to encourage representation. Most of us white guys didn't actually care, and even the ones that are mad are just yelling about double standards. Just try not to give actual racist ammunition against you. Even if her delivery leaves a little to be desired, Brie Larson's heart is in the right place. She's not trying to hurt white dudes, she's just trying to help everybody else, and that's good. And actually, right before I locked this video, I found this interview where she literally confirms what I just said.
To bring more seats up to the table?
Yep.
No one's getting their chair taken away. There's not less seats at the table, there's just more seats at the table.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now let's talk about the other side. I'm not about to get all, this is a feminist movie, so you can't complain about it because that's dumb. But, I don't know, there's some stuff I wish someone had said to me when I was younger. So, I looked this up.
The Air Force still wasn't letting women fly combat.
That's true. 1989. Just 30 years ago, female pilots weren't allowed to fly combat. That was not that long ago. Brigadier General Jeannie Leavitt was the first to fly combat. No one would believe we fixed sexism in 30 years, even if that was the last thing on the list. I don't think it's crazy to say that this movie is about female empowerment, grounded in reality with a supernatural finale, if you get me. All of those awesome moments of Carol getting back up were started because someone was trying to keep her down, or tell her she wasn't good enough. Or like, slow down, don't crash your go-kart. Look, not everything is a lesson. But heck, the entire arc of her character starts with being gaslit by Jan Roggen and Annette Intelligence that she needs to learn to hold her power back. That emotion, especially passion, is too dangerous or something. We know the truth is that they were afraid of her. I know someone is on their 6th paragraph right now and how we did fix sexism, and they're probably getting to the point about how women actually have more rights than men, and that's fine, you do you. Just for a minute, consider how you'd feel if in your lifetime there was something you could point to and say, objectively, there's proof that people like me weren't treated equally. Would you just wipe your hands? It's all better now, no worries, they fixed it. It's really hard to understand how a person can be upset about something that you've never had to deal with. That's not passive-aggressive, I genuinely believe that. Empathy for certain things comes so easy, but something that someone else was responsible for that happened to someone different from me a long time ago? It wasn't my fault, and it wouldn't have been a problem for me, so how do I relate? And if your response to that is, I have been discriminated against and you don't see me complaining, that's good. Good for you. We still don't get to define anyone else's experience or perception. People aren't numbers. They aren't genders or races or sexualities or jobs or disabilities or hair colors or skill levels. People are people. I mean that. Like, you see this one clip of a person doing a thing, screaming at a protest or puking on a roller coaster or buying coffee in pajamas, whatever. People aren't that one thing. They're just like you, multifaceted with fears and desires and families and bills and long drive-through lines. And if you can learn to do one thing in your life, my life, me, I'm still working on this. Empathy. I know every single person listening to me right now knows what empathy is, but just so we're all on the same page, empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. That is, the capacity to place oneself in another's position. I fully anticipate comments saying I'm virtue signaling, and that's fine. I'm just going to say again that it's just what I think. These aren't things I'm saying to win anyone's favor. These are things I've learned, and I'm still learning slowly right now. I know looking back 10 years from now, I'll see even more of the people I didn't consider, and it'll break my heart because we're all just people. Probably sounds like an obvious statement, but believe it or not, it's one this movie is sort of trying to remind you of. We get so caught up in our opinions and beliefs that people who don't share our opinions and beliefs can often just default in our brain to the bad guys. We reduce them to the others. That's what Captain Marvel does. The first half of this movie, we all just accept that Skrulls are bad guys because they stand opposite our protagonist, who obviously is our stand-in. So while it's a fun twist to flip the good guys and bad guys, it should be a reminder that in most, if not all situations, no one sees themselves as the bad guys. Again, I'm not saying there aren't bad people. I'm saying try empathy first. Okay, on to my 2 theses, one for why no like, one for why like. Coming to an end, I promise. I think the real reason, the one from people who could even look beyond Brie's off-camera remarks, was a little more nuanced, and I assume not everyone can relate, but let's give it a shot. Gatekeeping can be a serious problem in any fandom, and the MCU is no exception. I'm going to use first person here because I am guilty of this. We've had an established group for quite a while now. Sure, characters come and go, but they don't usually enter the group as the most powerful person in the universe. That can be a hard pill to swallow by itself, but the issue is something I've always called assumed familiarity. For instance, say one day you found out your best friend / roommate, let's call him Tom, has an estranged brother you never knew about. Let's call him Joe. One day Joe comes into your apartment for the first time, opens your fridge, takes a beer, sits on your couch, and buys a movie on demand. Then Joe challenges you to and crushes you in an arm wrestling match and tells you how he knew Tom long before you when he was different, happier even though you've been building a close relationship with Tom for over a decade and this guy is just here. And he's objectively better than everyone and everything through no real personal sacrifice or skill of his own and isn't shy about it. Joe even knows intimate details about Tom that you could only speculate about. It's unearned. That's how some of us felt. It wouldn't have mattered if Captain Marvel was a zebra. This is our universe. We've been here longer than you and now you're King Zebra? You're gonna kill the purple pirate lion? We've been directly and indirectly dealing with the lion for a decade. You get me? I'm not saying it's rational or that it isn't petty, but we can be a petty bunch. Look at me going on and on about it. Anyway, that was why I felt comfortable making that joke about her not ruining Endgame last week. Not because I really have any problem with her at this point, other than she hasn't been a member of the team long enough to get that win. And that applies in all situations. If Solid Snake, possibly my favorite character of all time, showed up at the end of Return of the King to push Gollum into the lava, I would have been a little upset, you know? I guess Tom Bombadil would have been a more apt comparison. And the unearned part is a big part. People like to compare Carol to Tony. Both arrogant, but Tony built his first suit while trapped in a cave with a box of scraps. Thor had his hammer taken and power stripped to learn to stop being a brat. Steve jumped on a grenade to prove his merit. Hope trained for years on the sidelines while being the right choice to be Ant-Woman. Even Natasha's arc hinted at a dark backstory and pain and suffering, and she's a human that keeps up with supernatural beings. Sure, Hulk's power came from gamma radiation, but Bruce is still super duper smart and his scientific accomplishment is a valuable asset to the team beyond the big guy. It's sort of implied that Carol is a great pilot, something you have to work at even with God-given talent, but we don't really see much of it. Side note, I actually like that they gave the flying moment to Maria. That was tight. So that's one theory I have. The other has to do with something I talked about in both Black Panther and Into the Spider-Verse, the latter of which does it the best out of the three. But Carol is a hero for girls to look up to. I mean, we get a literal moment of that's a tad cheesy, especially if you don't know Monica Rambeau's future, but like, she's the girl being inspired by Captain Marvel. That's cool, man. You too can blow up ships with a hug. I'm gonna make a comparison here that will undoubtedly upset some people, but part of me sees Carol Danvers as a female Thomas A. Anderson. That's right, Captain Neo. I mean... And...
Without us, you're only human.
But hear me out. I'm not the first person to point out that Neo is a blank slate. From the way Keanu plays him, to the fact that Trinity and Morpheus literally drag him through the movie until the last act when he decides to rescue Morpheus. He doesn't understand the real world or the Matrix, but in the end he gets back up and is all powerful because... spoilers, he wasn't fast enough and got shot in the chest a dozen times. Granted, that movie and scene are parsecs better, and Neo sacrificed himself. I mean, that movie is amazing. There are a million reasons to love it. But one of the reasons is that Neo is such a perfect blank slate. It's easy for viewers, and here's where I venture into unknown territory, possibly mostly men, to just paste themselves onto his face. Carol's story might be less relatable, we meet her as an alien, but she's enough of a blank slate that I think women can project themselves into her suit. Not always sure what she's thinking or feeling. Like a Gordon Freeman for girls, or, you know, like a Chell. Look, it's not a perfect theory. I super identified with both Chell and Lara Croft. I'll defer to the women in my audience. I have no clue. Julia said it's possible. She enjoyed the movie as much as I did. I've seen people who look like me do every possible thing imaginable. I even saw Arnold give birth once. So trying to imagine a world where I don't know what that's like is nearly impossible. For this movie, I wish I could go back in time and know nothing about the off-screen stuff. So when someone invents an Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind machine, let me know. This will be priority number one. And no, that's not a hint at next week. So, that's it. My total and complete thoughts on Captain Marvel. I really hope this wasn't boring or worse, preachy. I know this probably wasn't what some of you were hoping for from this video, but that little sub-theme of empathy hit me on the third time through, and the rest just sort of fell out of my head. Even after softening to Brie, it helped me realize I was still lacking empathy for her. Anyway, my goal was to maybe bridge the gap between these camps that seem to fundamentally misunderstand each other and in the process villainize each other. It's easy to say they're all wrong because of this one specific thing I heard from one person. I'm not saying stop arguing. Demand better of movies, always. Just be sure you know what you're arguing about. Or maybe it was all a ploy to drum up interest in the movie by Disney. If so, consider me a pawn. Next week, a much more lighthearted movie. But then, just a heads up, the week after that, July 19th, no video because I'll be celebrating my 10th wedding anniversary 3 months early because reasons. One day of VidCon being one reason. But I promise no work. I'm sticking to it. And the week after that, back to normal.
Oh yeah, the guy from the Strategic Homeland Intervention
Right,
Enforcement and Logistics Division.
God, you need a new name for that.
SHIELD activity.
Shield agent.
Agent of SHIELD. The SHIELD logo. Agents of SHIELD.
SHIELD could always use a good
A
pilot.
shield agent?
SHIELD alone can't protect us.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.